Hey, welcome to Man Me Spirit. My name is Ryan, and this is the channel dedicated to helping you grow spiritually in practical ways. So you read the title of this video, How to Manifest the Life of Your Dreams Practically, right? So everything in the world, whether it's nature, whether it's business, whether it's social hierarchy or whatever the case may be, is everything operates with systems, right? So in order for us to start manifesting and actually manifest what it is we desire, and not some fluff BS we see on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram, how to actually bring about real change in our lives, right? And that's what this video is going to break down. So before we get into all that, we need to understand the system of manifestation and how it pertains to our human condition. So there's three facets we're going to break down today, and at a later time we're going to have 3 dedicated videos to each one of these individual facets. But today, just to get you started, we're going to lump them all together: mind, body, and spirit, right? Because all 3 of those have to be in alignment, and all 3 of those have to be firing at almost peak capacity for us to bring from heaven, metaphorically speaking, to earth, right? As like the scripture goes, on earth as it is in heaven, right? So from an esoteric perspective, we need to be able to take the vision we see in our mind's eye, heaven, right? Where everything is just the way we want it. And we need to take that and bring it out here into the 3D space so that way we can experience it in totality, right? So how do we do that? How do we bypass all the YouTube fluff, all the BS that they've been giving us for years and years and years about manifestation, law of attraction, law of assumption, and all these other great things that we've all listened to time and time and time again on social media, right? But first, we need to understand the first component, the mind, because the mind is effectively the middle ground, or the gate between heaven and earth, right? Before you can do anything, you got to either think it, visualize it, or whatever the case may be before you actually go out and do it, right? And most of the time when we actually act without thinking, it surprises us for that exact reason. This video, we're going to keep it fairly simple and explain the conscious and the subconscious mind, right? The left hemisphere of the brain is what is known as the conscious analytical mind, right? So that's what you basically identify with as yourself. It's a composite of all your memories and experience, and the sum total of those thoughts, memories, and experiences is what you identify as you. But that's the beauty of it. It ain't you. It never was. It was just an experience that you used to form an identity around, right? So say if they were all negative experiences, you might have a negative identity. So say if that's not what you want at this stage in your life, you want to actually have a positive identity. You want to, change. So how do we do that? So all of our memories and thoughts are stored on the opposite half of our brain, called the right hemisphere, the subconscious. That is the thing that drives our habits, our passions, our desires, everything. So we need to undergo a process and understand a process called neuroplasticity, right? And now that we understand that we need to install new hardware so that way we can override the previous software and start to developing a new life. So there's 2 ways we can, well, a few ways, but we're going to focus on mainly one for this video. Recording your own voice, living the life of your dreams in the present tense. Why is that powerful? So the way your subconscious works, to overly simplify it, is that it can't think. That's the job of the left brain. Your subconscious only knows, and it only knows what it is you want. So whatever it is you're thinking to yourself or saying out loud, in repetition, repeating it over and over and over again, your subconscious is going to take that as gospel, because again, its job is not to tell you no. Its job is to only grant you your desires. So if everything we are is just a subtotal amount of our habits, then we need to address those, right? So now that we understand that our habits are stored on the right hemisphere of our brain, and a great way to get into that right hemisphere and to start changing some of those unwanted programs is the sound of your own voice, right? So again, your brain listens to your own voice all day, every day, giving it instructions. And when you're asleep, the left hemisphere of the brain, which is basically its protector or its guardian, which is the thing that's stopping just everything you come into contact with consciously from reaching your subconscious, and you just being all types of messed up. Well, I guess a little bit more messed up than what we are right now, right? But nah, jokes aside, but that it's actually a pretty, beautiful system. And that's, metaphorically speaking, that could be he who findeth a wife, right? But that's neither here nor there. So when we're listening to the sound of our voice in our sleep, our conscious mind is now, not present. The barrier between us and the subconscious is wide open, and it's getting instructions in the present tense. And why is that important? Your subconscious doesn't understand things like the past or the future. It only understands right here, right now, in this moment. So either we have it or we don't, right? And if we're saying that we have, this life that we want, we need to give it evidence, an emotional charge, right? So now that, the brain is going in sleep mode, and our voice is just, repeating the life that we want. We're fleshing it out. We're speaking it into existence with emotional resonance, right? So we're giving the brain all the cues it needs to pick up, this is happening, right? We're invested potentially. We're hearing all the things. Everything's being said the right way, right? So what is the next thing we need to do for our brain? Well, our brain isn't dumb, right? And our brain's gonna be like, okay, so we're doing all these great things in sleep time. Now we have to worry about the conscious mind, right? So the right brain's chilling while we're asleep. It's listening to our instructions. So what do we do while we're awake? We give the conscious mind the evidence it needs, right? Because if your conscious mind is going to block whatever it is you want, because again, it doesn't understand it. If you're trying to talk about like manifestation, and we'll just use the law of assumption, Neville Goddard. How are you going to go from being a 8 to 5 worker who's never manifested or done anything of any substantial, resonance in their lives, and now you're going to go from that to just manifesting the life of your dreams off of an assumption? Yeah, tell me how that worked out for you. The majority of us, it didn't work out, because again, we've spent our entire lives observing lack and limitation. So how we were just going to magically go from observing lack and limitation to magically being Neville Goddard and living in the dream fulfilled is beyond me. And that's why the majority of us is not living, the majority of people aren't living lives that they actually want to live. And that's sad, because again, you're not broken. Nothing's wrong with you. You just don't understand the system in which you live in, right? Playing in our subconscious. It takes about 21 days to form a new habit, right? So in this 21 days, what we want to be doing is, while we're asleep, listening to the recording of our voice. And now that we're awake, what we also want to do is now act on whatever it is, right? So say if your dream is to become like a content creator, right? While you're asleep, you should be listening to a recording of you living out that fantasy in the present tense. And then while you're awake, start recording, start editing, start uploading. So again, you're tricking your brain, because when it's asleep, it's screaming that we're living it. It's hearing your voice talking all these great things about the life that it's currently living. And then when it's awake, it's living the life. So there's no room for your brain to be like, well, I consciously want it, but the subconscious programs I have don't support that claim. There's no room for that anymore, right? So we've now bypassed all reasonable resistance. So now we have to keep going, right? So now the mind is starting to get attuned, right? Now the body, how do we get the body involved? We kind of alluded to it just now. We're taking action, right? And now that we're taking action, for every choice, there's an equal and opposite choice, right? We're giving the subconscious more potentiality to work with, right? So again, the subconscious, well, not again for the first time, excuse me. If you don't know, your subconscious, from esoteric beliefs or traditions, is linked to the infinite intelligence, right? And it can even become spiritualized to the point where you can start receiving divine downloads or information from the infinite intelligence or the collective conscious, whatever verbiage, tickles your fancy, and that's what you want to call it. But it's all the same at the end of the day, right? So now that we're, basically drawing or, tapping into that part of our cognitive faculty, what do we need to do with our body, right? Our body is both water and electric. So we know our entire nervous system and our brain are electric in property, and our bodies between 70 to 75% water, right? So it sounds like something in there is getting conducted, right? So it's almost like, if I didn't know any better, we might just be sending or receiving signals. Because again, we're not too different from a radio in the ways that we're torus field online. And if you don't know, your body's emitting a torus field about 5 to 6 feet in every which direction, right? And it's electromagnetic in its property. We're no different than radios in that capacity, right? So if we're on the AM frequency and we want to go to, FM, where our manifestation is, we need to make sure that the radio's in tune. We need to make sure that it's functioning properly, right? Because if you're an electric being, you're eating a whole bunch of acidic stuff. Hey, big fella, that ain't helping your electrical output now, is it? It's probably diminishing it, right? Battery acid. Yeah, see, now you're using your noodle. But yes, that's counterintuitive to what we're doing here. So if there's something particular that we're trying to do in a specific time frame, it might be beneficial to start eating, more alkaline foods. And that just means electric, right? So things that grow under the sun, or things of that capacity. We don't got to get too crazy or too fancy here, but in totality, right? But we need to make sure our diet is somewhat serviceable, so that way the mechanism, the hardware itself, is functioning to its proper capacity, right? And if at all possible, maybe cut out the fluoride. That kind of slows things down right about here. And we kind of need that for this whole manifestation thing. So take the fluoride out your toothpaste, that might help. But now that we working out and we have the body functioning properly, right? So now the mind and the body can send and receive coherent signals, right? Now we want to make sure we get our spirit into alignment, right? Now, this is where it gets kind of vast and kind of, not as tangible, because now we're talking about the spirit itself. That's beyond the 3D and the mental space, where things aren't defined, where they're kind of etheric, because, it's the ether, hence the name, right? So how do we approach something like that from a practical perspective, right? So meditation is a great practical way to approach something that is very impractical, like spirituality. And when you approach something like meditation, you want to do it from not an intellectual standpoint, but if you're trying to achieve an outcome, right, then you might want to understand the mechanisms or the components that would, facilitate that outcome. And for us in this instance, I think it would be most beneficial for us to start with just 5 minutes. If we don't meditate at all, right, and now you're sitting down and you're trying to get your body to remain still and your mind to stop thinking simultaneously when you don't have any experience doing either, might be a tall order to fill for a new meditator, right? So if we just start, maybe take out our smartphone, set a timer for 5 minutes, and be in a room completely silent and just visualize and feel the life that it is we're trying to manifest and bring about, it's safe to say that we have a higher opportunity of making that come to pass, right? Because again, we're not going to feel deterred because we got up early and left. With 5 minutes, you can do it. Even if you're just wrestling and sitting down, as long as you remain seated for those 5 minutes, that's a win. And then you can get up, go about it, whatever it is you have to do next. But every, evening or every night, or if you work, nights every morning, whatever the case may be, is don't make an excuse, make a result. Find a means or a way to sit down and to meditate. And then at the end of every week, maybe add 2 more minutes. So at the end of the first week, you go from 5 minutes to 7 minutes. And at the end of the next week, you go from 7 minutes to 9 minutes, and so on and so forth, right? But that's the important thing, to build up that visualization muscle, because when you meditate, again, the right half of your brain doesn't know what's real. So if you're constantly living in that meditation or that visualization, then guess what? Your brain's going to be like, oh, this is our reality. And it's going to start to move everything in your reality into place to mirror or to reflect that inner vision that you are holding and maintaining. So now understand what we just did. We are now meditating on the visualization. We are now getting our higher faculties involved in this sort of experience that we're trying to bring in for ourselves. So that's the spirit. The spirit is experiencing it in meditation. It's living it. It's enjoying it. And then the mind. when we're awake, we're thinking about it. When we're asleep, we're listening to recordings of us living it, right? So now the mind is invested. So you see how it's coming down now. It's from the ether. Now it's in the mind. And then when we're awake, we're taking conscious action toward the goal. So now it went from the ether or the ethereal to the mind, the mental plane, and from the mental plane to the physical plane, because now it's in the body and the body's actually taking steps to make it real. So this is how you come into actual alignment, right? So in 21 days, you can start to see real results. And I know that's gonna, oh, I want it. But here's the thing, right? This only goes as fast or as slow as the limitation you placed on yourself, right? And that's what belief is. If you know that you have no belief and you need to see everything outside of you before it happens, then this is going to take a bit longer than 21 days, right? Because now you have to go, you're undergoing that process of neuroplasticity to sort of undo those habitual negative thought and habit patterns and those limiting beliefs, and to install the new hardware of those, synapses or those neural connections within the brain, so that way it can install new software of unlimiting beliefs, of belief in self and accomplishment, right? So as you're doing that and you're taking the actions, you're giving your brain evidence, right? So now the only thing stopping you is literally just your conscious mind, which you have control over. The processes that were beyond our reach are now starting to work themselves out, because again, we're listening to the recording in our sleep. So our subconscious doesn't have the conscious mind to block it or to limit it anymore. And then when we're awake, we're confirming what we were hearing in our sleep by taking conscious action toward it, right? So it's safe to say, if you implement this system and you just tailor it to whatever your specific life looks like, you're going to reap the benefit of every desire you've ever had. Because at the end of the day, you created a system, right? So say you have a 9-to-5 job. You go to work at 9 a.m. You get home around, with traffic, you get home at like 6. So from 6 to 7, what you want to do is maybe relax. Take a moment or two to decompress, hug the kids, hug the wife, whatever the case may be is. And then from 7 to 8, you start recording or doing whatever it is you want to do for your channel or your life. And then from there, you spend another hour, 30 minutes recording, uploading, whatever the case may be, editing. And then from there to end the night, you want to meditate. You then, relax the mind and visualize, live in that visualization that you're trying to bring about. And then lastly, but certainly not least, you want to just exercise alignment, right? Keep the visualization, the mental projection, and then the action, all of it in alignment, in tandem, and you shall reap the benefit of whatever it is you're trying to manifest, right? Because again, what could stop you other than yourself and your limiting beliefs at that point? Understand how our subconscious works. We understand effectively how to get our bodies involved, how to keep our minds involved, and also how to keep our spirit aligned to the task. So implement a system, create it. Don't come up with excuses of why you can't. Come up with why you can, right? Because at the end of the day, it's your life. And if you're living it in a way that isn't, happy or palpable for yourself, it's not going to end well. So make sure you're doing what it is you want to do, how you want to do it, right? And like I said, in the next few videos, I will break down each one of these sections more in depth, so that way we can create a more in-depth system. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I've been Ryan. This is Man Meets Spirit, and I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Love.